if I were to tell you something ridiculous, absurd that was going to happen in the future next time, you'd probably still not believe me, but you might be a little bit, right? So, Dan Shepard, if I told you that today God was going to call you on the phone to have a conversation with you specifically.
Dan Shepard.
God is attempting to reach you on your cellular device. God is attempting to reach you on your cellular device.
Go ahead and get that, Dan. There's a lot of moving parts to this one today. If I were to predict things in the present, which would be fulfilled in the future 3 or 4 times, you would begin to suspect that there was something to my predictions, to my prophecies, right? If I predicted future events and prophesied about things yet to come dozens of times, if I prophesied accurately about future events hundreds of times, you would get to a place eventually, and by the way, I'm not a prophet, you would get to a place eventually where you want to know what's next. And where you would have faith in that kind of ability to tell about the future. And not only that, you would tend to view me as someone as having great credibility for claims that I make. Correct? How do we know the Bible is true? This is how. The Bible is a self-proving document. It is because of what it says and the time in which it says what it says that helps us to know that what it says is true through prophecies fulfilled over and over and over and over again throughout the Scriptures. Men and women speaking as prophets from God about future events will tell about something that's to come. And then later, even in Scripture, written and occurring later, those very things happen. And I will give you a couple of examples for illustration purposes only. We couldn't begin to have a thoughtful discussion about all there is to say about prophecies fulfilled in the Scriptures, but a couple that are noteworthy to me. First, in Deuteronomy chapter 31, God was speaking through Moses just as Israel was preparing to enter the promised land. I mean, this is after 40 years in the desert. This is after He's raised them up, saved them, and rescued them from Egypt. He's done all kinds of amazing things in the desert, and now they're getting ready to go into Canaan, to the promised land, flowing with milk and honey. And they're excited, and they've had rough times. But now they're excited, and they're there, and they're on the verge. And God is speaking these words, or Moses is speaking these words of God to the people, preparing them. And the essence of the message that he gives to them on that day is this: if you are careful to obey all that God has said, because He's given us decrees and laws and ordinances and some rules to follow, important, critical rules to follow as we go in and take possession of this promised land. If you are careful to obey God, He will bless your socks off. He's going to bless you crazy blessings if you're careful to follow what God has said. However, God communicates to those same people, if you reject me, if you rebel against me, and if you are unfaithful to me, and you turn instead to other gods, then I will curse you and the land in ways you don't want to imagine. It will not go well for you if you reject me. And then, in chapter 19 and verse 31, God says, and this, in fact, is what will happen. I'm telling you now, you have a choice to obey me and to follow my commands or to reject me. But I know even now that you will choose to reject me. And through Moses says this: now write down for yourselves this song and teach it to the Israelites and have them sing it, so that it may be a witness for me against them. when I have brought them into the land flowing with milk and honey, the land I promised on oath to their fathers, and when they eat their fill and thrive, they will turn to other gods and worship them, rejecting me and breaking my covenant. And when many disasters and difficulties come upon them, this song will testify against them, because it will not be forgotten by their descendants. This was written by Moses in 1407, or very close to there, BC. 1407 years before Christ was born, at a time when the whole nation, when the whole people of Israel was totally optimistic about their future. When they are saying, we are God's team, we have got this is going to be great. Even Moses was excited. And yet, speaking these words from God, he's saying, but you will reject God. And they must have thought, you're crazy. We will not. We've learned our lessons. And within a few short generations of Moses writing these words, we know, as a matter of fact, that Israel turned its back on God. And perhaps slowly at first, but with increasing consistency, the Israelites rejected their God and turned to the gods of the peoples around them. And the rest of the story is grim. In Jeremiah chapter 25, that prophet, Jeremiah, years and years later, said that the Jews would suffer 70 years of Babylonian domination. Babylon would be in the future a neighbor and a mighty world power. And he told the Jews that they would suffer 70 years of Babylonian domination. Jeremiah also said that Babylon would be punished after that 70 years. Both parts of this prophecy were fulfilled. In 609 BC, which is about 2,600 years ago, Babylon captured the last Assyrian king and ruled over a vast part of what had been the Assyrian Empire, to which the land of Israel previously had been subjugated. Babylon later asserted its dominance by taking many Jews as captive to Babylon, and by destroying Jerusalem and the temple. Big deal. In Jewish history, they're being conquered by Babylon. Big deal. They came in, destroyed Jerusalem, knocked down the temple, destroyed it, and took the Jews into captivity. The domination ended in 539 BC when Cyrus, a leader of the Persians and Medes, conquered Babylon and brought an end to its empire. And the Jews were sent home. During the time of Daniel, another prophet who we read about in the Bible, who lived during the same time of events described with regard to the Babylonians. In fact, he was among the Jews who was taken to Babylon in captivity. When the Babylonians invaded Judah, the southern part of Israel, and took the Jews, including David, and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, Daniel would later deliver a prophecy. A prophecy that Jerusalem and the temple would be destroyed again. Now you have to stop here for a minute and understand this. That Daniel and his Jewish citizen community are now in Babylon in captivity, and he's telling these people the temple and Jerusalem will be destroyed again. And they have to be looking at him saying, what are you, nuts? I mean, A, what do you mean destroyed again? It's already destroyed. B, there's zero reason to believe we're ever going to have a chance to go back and rebuild that city or the temple. C, if we ever do have a chance to go back and rebuild the city and the temple, we'll never let it be destroyed again because we've learned our lesson. And nonetheless, Daniel prophesies, it'll be built again and destroyed again. In fact, within these verses in Daniel chapter 9, Daniel provides a chronology by which certain events would occur. First, the Jews would return from captivity and rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. Afterward, he prophesies that an anointed one, a Messiah, the Christ, would appear, but that he would be rejected. Then, Jerusalem and the temple would be destroyed again.